meditation. And I'm here to talk to you today about how to tame your mind. And this was due to be a live event a few weeks ago, and obviously things are quite different now. But I think the concepts that we're going to talk about are going to be really powerful and helpful in the situation we find ourselves in right now. Because when I talk about meditation, which is the essence of how you can tame your mind, there's a few things that come up, and it can get in the way of you being able to access this skill. Now, the first of those that I hear really often is, I don't have time. Now, depending on your lockdown experience, maybe that's still an issue for you. Maybe you've got family at home now that weren't there before. Or maybe it's even just a sense of feeling like you don't, it can feel really hard to use your time in a way that's really effective. And we're going to work through this talk. And then one is, my mind is too busy. Let me move my little headpiece there. My mind's too busy. Now, this is a really common one, because when people go to close their eyes, they find that suddenly all the thoughts that they had no idea were there start bubbling up. I'm going to talk about how actually our thoughts in meditation are really helpful. Hard to believe, I know, but I promise that's what we're going to uncover. And I don't know how. And this is another one I'm going to help you with today. I'm going to give you two simple practices that you can use right now that will make a big difference to how your head feels and the way your day-to-day life feels. And finally, it's not for me. Now, hopefully, if you're listening to this, it's because you have chosen to. So hopefully this one doesn't apply to you. But if it does, please know that we're going to be busting some myths around what meditation is and how it can be effective for you. So hopefully you'll feel empowered to make use of this both in this time right now, but also beyond. So it's going to be all about taking us from this place of feeling really overwhelmed by how much is going on in our minds, whether that's anxiety, worry, having lots to do, just that all of the noise that happens in our mind, all of that busyness, and looking at how we can train our focus and attention through meditation to calm the noise, to calm the storm, and to tame the mind. And it really is like building a muscle in our body. So I'm going to tell you this, what we're going to do in this session. We're going to talk about what meditation is and how it works, including the science of what's going on in the body and the mind while we meditate, and why is it making a difference. We're going to experience 2 short meditations, because it will make the things I'm going to say make much more sense if you've experienced it. And even if you've had a meditation experience before, or you're a regular meditator, hopefully it will give you just another alternative way to think about meditation. And then finally, we're going to talk importantly about how do you actually make this happen in your life so it's ready to go and it's a tool that you can use. Because I think we've all experienced that, where maybe you go to a workshop, you go somewhere and it seems like it's a great idea, but actually making it happen in your life, it just doesn't work. So we're going to really talk about how you can get through that so this can be something meaningful and powerful in your life right now. So I'll tell you about me. Now, I had a really successful corporate career with Waitrose. I joined them as a graduate, and I did lots of exciting projects with them, opening the Canary Wharf branch, moved into training and management development, and I had some great opportunities. And then I had 2 children really close together. And just as I was due to return after my second child back to work, I moved to Australia with my husband. And so I then was stay-at-home mum, completely changing my identity, and there was a real sense of loss of identity. And perhaps you can relate to that. Perhaps there's been a time in your life where things have changed and you've lost track of who you are and you're not really sure what your direction is. But for me, my breaking point, my moment where I realized something needed to change, came about 7 years ago now, when I wrote in my journal the words, "I am nothing." And I felt those words so completely to my core, and it really shook me. It was like a wake-up call from my future self of, either this is true and I need to do something, or it's not true and it's really awful that I feel that way. And the truth about my life back then, at that moment when I wrote those words, is that on the outside, you would not have seen that. I wouldn't have looked like someone who felt that way. I was project managing a house build. I was volunteering at a charity. I was really actively involved at the children's school. I had a really active social life. And to the people around me, the most of them would not have known how achingly hard many days were. Even just getting the basics done were really tricky. But at that moment when I wrote those words, and it awakened that spark of, I need to do something differently, that's when I discovered meditation. And it wasn't a magic bullet that suddenly fixed everything in my life, but it allowed me to rediscover a space to create and to understand what was going on for me, and to really change how I experienced every part of my life. And it allowed me to then follow the breadcrumbs of what was meaningful to me and to keep going. And I then went on to study psychology at Monash University, acceptance commitment therapy, mindfulness training. I literally followed this journey, building up all the skills that actually I had no idea what I was going to do with, and have ended up becoming the foundation of the Be Modern Meditation program. So the program that I offer, and what some of the things we're going to touch on today, it's not just meditation, it's psychology, neuroscience, it's the practicalities of how do you make this work. So it's about more than just learning to meditate. It's about changing your life, and that's really powerful. And I now live in Hampshire with 2 children who are teenagers. So that's been fun during the lockdown. I don't know what your situation is right now, but well, let's just say it's challenging, 13 and 15. I also have a dog and I have a cat, and here she is. Now she knows that she's the boss. So that's me. And what I do at Be is I provide meditation coaching. And as I said, I've got this, the Be More program is the foundation for that. And I do that, and I deliver that in a number of ways. So one-to-one coaching, now online more than in person. I was already thankfully doing a lot of online work. I also go into corporate environments and charities and wherever, really, to provide, like this session here, a bit of myth busting and making meditation attainable and accessible. Because wherever your start point, whether you're ready and wanting a transformation journey, or whether you just want to feel calmer in your life and you want to feel more focused and feel like you can sleep better, whatever your motivations are, meditation can give you what you need. It's about finding what way that works for you. And then finally, I have a community. So I have a membership program where people can come and access that coaching, that Be More program, either with incorporating the one-to-one work, or just accessing that at a group level. And I'm in the process of finishing off creating a digital program that complements that whole program. So that's a bit of a flavour and overview of the work that I do. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to meditate together. Now, I know what it's like with these sorts of catch-up videos, is that sometimes we can be watching them whilst we're also doing other things. And if that's you, no judgment at all, but really you're going to get the most from this session if you can just carve out a window for yourself to allow yourself to really be here right now with what we're doing. So if you can be in a space, it doesn't need to be a perfect space with a candle and a special cushion. It can just be sitting in a chair in a room that's reasonably quiet. You don't need to have, and that's one of the things that is really powerful for me, is to empower you to do this wherever you are. So just the 2 caveats that I give with meditation guidance is, the first thing is, the chances are, when you close your eyes, if you're a person in this world, if you're a normal human, you are going to have thoughts, because our mind's job is to generate thoughts. Just like our nose is there to smell, our eyes are there to see, your mind will generate thoughts. And that's okay. We don't need to have a still mind for meditation to be effective or to work. The only thing we have to do is notice when we've been distracted. So as I guide you through this meditation, when you notice that your mind is no longer with the words that I'm saying or what we're doing, and maybe you're already planning the dinner, or you're thinking about a conversation you've had, or you're thinking about something that you needed to do, or whatever it is that distracts you, or a sensation in the body, just come back. And that moment of noticing, that is the practice. So allow the experience to be whatever it is today for you. And sometimes we can just become aware of that sometimes when I close my eyes, I realize just how much of a crazy town it is. And other times I close my eyes and it's calm and still. We're just going to be with whatever is there. And then the second thing is our posture. So we want to find a happy middle ground between being active and relaxed. So we don't want to be so relaxed that we're kind of falling asleep, but we also don't want to be so active that we're holding it too tight and we're trying too hard and holding ourselves rigid and controlling. We want that middle space, active but relaxed. So having your lower back supported can be really helpful. In a chair, on the floor, whatever's comfortable for you, or even sitting up in bed can be quite a nice place to meditate. But I would say the final thing is to not have your head resting back on anything if you can, because that will mean that you'll be in a state of falling asleep if you've got lots of tiredness, rather than actually falling asleep. So if you find there's a little bit of nodding dog, that's okay. It just means that maybe there's more tiredness in your system than you were aware of. So that's it. And we're going to just gently close down our eyes and allow ourselves to land right here in this moment. And this is just an invitation to stop and turn inwards. So often in our lives, we're looking outwards, rushing to get somewhere or reach some goal. For now, we're doing the opposite. We're turning inwards. So taking your attention and just place it on the very tips of your fingers, letting your full focus rest there. And if the mind wanders, just coming back gently without effort to the very tips of the fingers. And you might notice after a moment there's a gentle humming or buzzing in the fingers, like a vibration or tingling. And if you don't feel anything, that's okay too. Just be aware of whatever sensations are there at the very tips of the fingers. And that sensation, that's your nervous system responding to your attention. Your fingers preparing for movement, responding to you, turning inwards. Mind and the body, just for a moment, coming together. And if the mind's taken a walk, just bringing it back. And then we'll add our toes to that awareness. So now your fingers and your toes are in your awareness. And see if you can feel any sensations in your toes. Actually feel it more in the fingers. And then allow that awareness to travel up the ankles now. The shins, the calves, up to the knees. And from the knees all the way up the thighs and into the hips. So now your legs are in your awareness. Perhaps there's a heaviness or a lightness to the legs. Just be curious about what's there. And if the mind wanders, just coming back. No effort, no trying. And then from the hands, allowing it to spill across the palms, up the wrists and the forearms, to the crook of the arms. And then up to the shoulders, across the chest, down into the belly. Your whole body in your awareness now. Perhaps noticing any areas of tension. Noticing the jaw, the cheeks, the forehead. Perhaps there's a deeper feeling of relaxation just beginning to emerge. A feeling of just being. If the mind is still wandering away, just setting an intention to be right here. I'm exactly where I planned to be. There is nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. This is it. This moment is all that's real. And taking 3 bigger than usual breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And letting the breath return to its natural rhythm. Just wiggling the fingers and the toes with the eyes still closed. Just noticing what that feels like to be moving again. And then when you're ready, just gently blinking open the eyes. Just take a moment to notice what you feel in your body now. Without any expectations, just be aware of if there's anything's changed or feels different. And now we're going to talk about stress. And particularly right now, I think we're all feeling, we have been feeling, there's an underlying stress around us, even if it's not directly impacting us. But essentially our body, our nervous system only has 2 tracks. We're either in relaxation response or we're in the stress response. And when we evolved, we would have been in that relaxation response around 85% of the time. So we might have had tiger on horizon or run for a kill, but actually then we would have been in relaxation response. And obviously now in our modern world, that's a very different scenario, and particularly in this current climate, we're in that stress response. We're in the stress response for more like 80% of the time. And for many of us, it can be an almost constant. Now, the first thing that meditation is actually doing is, at its simplest, is just switching tracks. So it's taking us out of stress response into relaxation response. And when you think of it in those terms, it makes sense that it doesn't necessarily feel relaxing when you meditate. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not relaxing your body and your system. But if you imagine, I've got a very high-tech teaching aid here of a snow globe. If you imagine this snow globe here is like our minds, and it's whirling and whirring with thoughts and stress. And when we stop and we start to, and you can see that the glitter settling there, when we stop, the first thing at first, there's still motion, there's still thoughts, there's still disturbance, and then it starts to settle. So it's okay if meditation doesn't instantly feel relaxing. It's like trying to switch from the fast lane on the motorway and handbrake it to the slow lane. You can't do that. It's about taking that gradual process to get there. And the more we do it, the easier that becomes. So why do we need to do it? So the effects of modern stress are, with this kind of relentless, almost constant stress response, what we end up with is chronic stress. So we have this constant feeling of stress and happening in our body. And when we do these micro resets with a meditation practice, however many minutes you meditate for, you turn this long, one big solid solid stress into a series of acute stresses instead. So rather than it being this ticking time bomb of, accumulating stress in the body and the system until the point where you break down, you actually can release some with that meditation practice, so that you can't always change the amount of stress in your life. That's the reality, is that sometimes the stress that we're experiencing isn't something we can impact, but we can change how it impacts our body. And that's where the science is really compelling. This is like the sales pitch for meditation, if you like, because one of the first things is around living longer. Now, that global, that sort of high level stress response that we feel in our body happens at a cellular level as well. So in each of our cells, we have around 20,000 plus genes, and that's the little cross shapes in our genes. And each of those, on each of the corners, is something called a telomere. Now, the telomere is like a shoelace cap. And as the cell is under stress, those telomeres shorten. And when the telomeres disappear, that cell dies. Now, when what meditation has been shown to do is reduce that degeneration, and in some cases even regenerate that telomere. So it's actually associated with physical aging, and we can actually be impacting how we age through something as simple as even just 10 minutes of meditation a day. And same with our brain, and we'll talk a little bit more in a minute about how and what we're doing in the brain. But essentially, there's two things: we're slowing down the degeneration of grey matter, and regenerating grey matter in other areas that we'll talk about. And which is so powerful to think that just as something as simple as closing our eyes, we can be having all these impacts. And cancer protection, this is to do with cancer gene expression. So epigenetics is is an area of science that looks at how the environment and things that happen to us create the expression of a gene. So we have, for example, we might have a cancer gene in our cells that it's only under certain circumstances that it gets expressed. And so a lot of research is looking at, well, how can you prevent that cancer gene from expressing itself? And what they're showing is that meditation can be a really powerful tool in preventing cancer gene expression. It reduces cancer gene expression. Now, obviously, cancer is a very vast and complex topic, so I'm not in any way suggesting that it's an immunity from cancer, but it's really, I think it's really, for me, it was really interesting to know that I could be having an impact right down to that sort of level on how my body responds to things in my environment. And then boosting the immune system. So we get fewer coughs and colds when we meditate. Now, I always like to tell the stories. I did a talk at a construction company, and while I was in this talk, I had a terrible cold, and so I was literally talking about how you get fewer coughs and colds with a terrible cough and cold. And yeah, so I wasn't exactly a living embodiment of it then, but it really, I know in my own life and for a lot of people I've worked with, actually they see a real boost to their immune system, and we'll talk about why in a minute. And then goodbye low energy. So 20 minutes of deep meditation has been shown to be equivalent to 4 hours deep sleep. Again, really powerful. So if you're feeling that late afternoon mojo, that you lost mojo, way to boost yourself. In fact, I often, if I'm going to do a long car journey and I'm feeling tired, I will pull over into the services and do a 5-minute meditation, and it really helps me to be able to keep going. And the final one, happy hearts. You have reduced risk of heart attack and stroke when you meditate regularly. Again, really powerful. Something that's so simple can have such wide-reaching effects. But why is it doing it? So what's going on? So in many ways, you can think of meditation as like a form of brain training. So just like going to the gym and working out, you get bigger muscles and more strength. The same thing happens in the mind. The mind is a gym and meditation is a workout. And it's well worth looking at the work of Daniel Coleman around meditation. So that's a recent book by him and Richie Davidson, who's another neuroscientist who studies. They've done a lot of research over many years on meditation called The Science of Meditation. It's a really fascinating read if you're interested in finding out more. But what exactly is it and how is it working? So I've already sort of shown you my trusty snow globe here. But another shake, why not? Now, when we start to settle this snow globe and the snow starts to settle down, two qualities emerge. And the first one is more space. And the second is we can see more clearly. And those two things there's a direct correlation between those and what's happening in our brain. And I'm going to use my next really high-tech teaching aid here, which is my hand. So if you imagine that this is my brain here. Now, this bit here would be my brainstem. Now, this would be where my survival stuff sits. So this is my breath, my heart rate, my temperature control, but it's also where that fight, flight, freeze response sits. So it's all about keeping me alive. It's my oldest part of my brain, 500 million years old, reptile brain. And then the next layer is this mammal brain, my limbic system, the emotional brain. So this part is a little bit more evolved, but it's still very reactive. So it's about something happens, I have an emotion and I react. And tucked underneath here, we have these two little almond shapes called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is like the smoke alarm. So it's basically it's that warning system. It's scanning the horizon, looking out for tigers, sees a danger, and then it sets off the alarm. Now, when it triggers, it sends the signal to this fight, flight, freeze response. And it's when that goes off, that's what triggers the adrenaline, the cortisol, that response in our body to get us ready to deal with the danger. But in the modern world, we have this faulty smoke alarm that's going off when the toast is burning. And so we end up this really hyper reactive. And that's why we end up with that stress response happening 80% of the time. Now, the final layer here, this thinking cap layer, this is the cortex, the thinking part of the brain, and the very tips of my fingers would be the prefrontal cortex. So that's my brain CEO. So that's that ability to see the big picture, be able to choose my response rather than reacting. And they're in a kind of tug of war, these two, because when this amygdala fires off to say there is a danger, it sets off this fight or flight, and it actually disconnects us from this ability to think clearly and from that sort of more global view. Because if it is the tiger on the horizon, as we evolved, and I don't want to be thinking about it like this, because if I've got a tiger coming towards me and I start debating whether I should be going left or whether I should be going right, chances are I'm going to be tiger food. And this fight or flight response, it sets off the adrenaline and the cortisol, but it also, apart from keeping us downstairs in this reactive part of our brain, it also downregulates systems in our body as well. So our digestion is the first one. Now, if I'm going to be a tiger's lunch, I don't need to digest mine. And that's why often when people experience chronic stress, they can end up with you can end up with things like irritable bowel syndrome, you can end up with sluggish digestion, and they can end up, not being able to get the nutrients that they need from their food. It becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. And 95% of the serotonin, the feel-good chemical that we use in our brain, is actually produced in our gut. So when we're in that chronic stress response and we're not producing that we're not able to produce that serotonin well, that impacts our emotional regulation. And as you can you build that picture, that actually you start to have an impact on everything in our lives. Similarly with the immune system, as I mentioned before, you get this immune system boost because when I'm in that stress response, and I'm fighting for my life, if I'm going to fight for my life, I don't need to fight off a cold. So really adaptively, my body, when it has that stress response, it turns down the immune system. And I think we've probably all had that experience where you go on holiday and that's when you get sick. It's like you finally relax and then your body goes, finally, now we can get sick. And similarly with this thinking cap, again, we've all experienced that, when there's sometimes if you're in a really high stress situation, you think, oh my God, I can't think. I can't think. Well, you really can't think because you're trapped in your downstairs of your brain. Now, what the two areas that meditation has been shown to really impact, that helps with this being able to see clearly, being able to have space, is this amygdala. So it's actually been shown in meditators to reduce in size. So it's literally making it smaller because it's reacting less. And so you end up being able to choose your response more. And this as I said, this is this tug of war between these two. So you downregulate here and you also strengthen up here. So what they've shown is that there was a Harvard study where they had a group of people who meditated for 30 minutes a day and a group who read for 30 minutes a day. Now, and then they looked in MRI scans of those people, and the reading group didn't experience any structural changes to their brain, even though in the moment they did experience some relaxation. In the meditating group, however, what they saw was in this prefrontal cortex area, the first thing was a thickening of the myelin layer, which is like the layer that conducts the signals. So literally like building a muscle, the meditation built a muscle, and also an increased activation across both of the hemispheres of the brain. So that being able to integrate and see things from a more global perspective is helped from that activation. So the meditation practice, even 3 months later, there were still changes based on where they had been before. So it really is like, the same way that you think about training your body, you can train your mind in meditation to have this ability to stay in control and stay focused. And in this modern world where our attention is just constantly under attack, isn't it? We're constantly hijacked for our attention, whether that's social media or emails or whatever it is. Being able to build a capacity to choose where you place your attention, how to focus, and recognizing when you're off beam is a really important skill that will change so much about how you experience your life and unlock a totally different experience in your life. So how does it work? What exactly is this meditation practice? Well, my second diagram that you can see here, these two circles. Now this outer circle, this outer circle is doing circle. It's like the hamster wheel. It's we're often outward focused and we're looking at, the actions of our lives, the things that are going on. It's our thoughts. It's also our body. It's our breath. It's basically anything that's not that core of you. Now, this being circle in the middle, that's that part of you that's the same you now as you were when you were 12. There's that part that's unchanging. And that's the part that we lose touch with when we're all constantly outward focused. And the other things that reside in that middle there is intuition and creativity. So being able to have insight and to know the right thing to do without having to overanalyze comes from dropping into that space. So really that's the essence of what we're doing meditation, is turning our attention from going outwards to focusing inwards and just allowing it to drop in. And you can think of that like the ocean. If you imagine the surface of the ocean, I don't want to kind of cover my face here, the surface of the ocean here. And this is where this doing is, this kind of always reacting. And we're always waiting to see what happens, when there's going to be a storm, when there's going to be calm waters. And we tend to be like, when it's calm, I'll be okay. But of course, it's never going to stay calm forever. And so it's a very precarious way to live because we're always dependent on external circumstances for whether we're okay or not. But with meditation, we drop underneath the surface of that and we can start to see that actually I'm not connected to those waves. Like I can actually just observe what's happening and choose a response, which is really powerful. And as we start to drop into deeper meditation states, we kind of drop away from that thinking mind. But what happens? We have a thought and it starts to take us back up towards the surface. And we notice and we go, oh, I'm having a thought, come back. And then we start again and we drop again. And then another thought. And every time this happens, we're releasing stress from our nervous system. And then we come back. So just like when you do a workout in the gym, sometimes the most painful, awful workouts are the ones that are doing the most good. Sometimes the meditations that are the most thought-filled are doing the most. So that's why the actual experience in your meditation is less important than just showing up and doing the practice. And as we drop down, when you get to that deep ocean, you think of those David Attenborough programs that, with the deep under the ocean, it's always still and calm. No matter what is going on at the surface, there can be a storm raging, but there's always a stillness. And that's the thing with meditation. We're not creating calm. We're not creating stillness. We're dropping into a stillness that has always been there, that is always there. And when we start to be able to drop an anchor into that, even when we're at the surface and things are going crazy, we've got this connection to that stillness. And that's the quality that starts to spill over into your life, so that you find that things that would have made you really stressed out or find really difficult, there's a part of you that's able to stay grounded and stay anchored in that stillness. So really powerful. So let's do another meditation and we'll see how it feels. Now we're going to use the body as that start point again, because the body is really useful because it can only ever be right now. So when I start a meditation practice with my body, I'm taking myself, it's like I'm moving from that fast lane and I'm just changing gears and getting myself closer to that slow lane. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to use the breath. Now, you may have experienced lots of different meditation styles in your life, and the breath is used in lots of different ways. We're going to use the breath in really as a way to cultivate this space between this doing and being, because the breath is actually part of doing. It's not something I have to make happen from that core of me, whether you want to call it your soul or your consciousness or what. I'd have to make that happen. My body breathes for me. And so we're just going to observe the breath from that place of being separate from it. And inevitably we'll have thoughts occur and we'll get distracted, and we'll use that to just keep bringing ourselves back. So I'll guide you through and really try and just be curious about what you experience without it needing to feel a certain way, because there is no right or wrong, pass or fail. And the more we try to hold on to a certain feeling or create a certain feeling or almost try and dive down to the deep ocean and, you know, hold our breath and get ourselves to the deep ocean, the more we're just going to pop back up to the surface. So just allow that settling, allow yourself to drop down. And that's the way to get there, is just letting go of trying. So closing down the eyes again, just as we did before, supporting the lower back, and just taking a moment to land back into your body in this space. Feeling the breath coming and going, feeling the chair underneath you, feeling the feet on the floor. And then take your attention away from that big picture to your fingertips, noticing that there might still be things in your awareness, like thoughts or sensations, and that's okay. We're just going to make the main focus of our attention be our fingertips. And then we're going to add our toes to that awareness. Perhaps there's a tingling in the fingers or the toes. Just allowing whatever sensations there. And allowing that awareness, that attention, to spread up the ankles and the calves, up to the knees. From the knees, traveling up the thighs and into the hips. And then from the wrists, traveling up the forearms, to the crook of the arm, all the way up to the shoulders, across the chest, down into the belly. So now your whole body's in your awareness. Perhaps noticing the shoulders or anywhere that's holding tension, without trying to change it. Noticing the jaw, the tongue in the mouth. Perhaps a deeper feeling of relaxation just beginning to emerge. And setting an intention to be here. I'm exactly where I planned to be. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. This is it. This moment is all that's real. And we'll take our awareness to the breath now. Just notice, where do you feel the breath today? Perhaps it's where that cool air enters the nostrils or the mouth. Perhaps it's where your chest rises and falls. Or maybe it's the belly. Just notice where you feel the breath. And just let your attention rest gently, wherever's the most prominent. And just notice first that the body's breathing for you. There's no effort or trying, it just happens. And when the mind gets involved and pays attention, sometimes it can think we want to control it. So it almost becomes momentarily difficult. See if you can let that go if that happens, and just let the breath come and go on its own. No effort or making it happen. The body's just breathing. and you are just watching. And we'll use the labeling technique now as a way to anchor ourselves to that breath and noticing whenever we find ourselves moving away from the breath. So when you breathe in, just mentally labeling it rising in the mind. When you breathe out, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. Rising, falling. Coming back anytime the mind gets distracted. And then coming back now to the fingertips and the toes to lift up your awareness back to your whole body. Allowing the breath to slowly deepen. Taking 3 bigger than usual breaths. Really slowing down that exhale. Letting movement return to the fingers and the toes. Just gently blinking open the eyes. Just noticing the room again. Just noticing what you feel in your body now after we've done that. And I'm going to talk you through what can you expect with a regular practice. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this because I'm conscious of time and the fact that, that we only ever have a limited amount of time to spend on these things. But essentially, on the more of this side, you're going to have more space mentally. And we've already talked a lot about that. And that allows a connection back to yourself and to other people because you're more aware, you've got more time and space to actually see what's going on rather than the stories that we tell ourselves about what's going on. And you'll improve focus and productivity. So your ability to choose where to place your attention that you train in meditation becomes useful in your actual life as well, rather than that stereotype of if you meditate, you're going to become so zen, you won't have any motivation. It's the opposite. You actually become much more aware of what's important and what to focus on. And you find that state of flow, tapping into curiosity and creativity and being able to bring some of that quality to your eyes open life. So you can start connecting back to what's important to you and crafting a life that's meaningful for you. And then less of that busy mind and that overthinking, that kind of churning over and over again, things that are going on that leads to anxiety and depression. And the energy crash that can come with that exhaustion that we get, that we end up having to just crash out. You'll often sleep better because it's like having a balloon filled with stress that you slowly releasing the air from that. And it means that then you can sleep better and rest more when you're actually asleep. And it's also proven to be really effective for treating depression and anxiety, as effective as medication, although there's obviously a place for both. And as one client said to me, over the last 6 weeks, my perception has changed so that I now feel truly satisfied with life as it is right now. So it's not about changing your life or changing you. It's about getting in touch with what's important and how you can really experience your life exactly as it is in a much more in a much more satisfying and meaningful way, which is really powerful. And finally, how to build this meditation practice. Now, I would often talk about the work of Gretchen Rubin, who is she's effectively a happiness researcher, and she became really fascinated with human behavior and what helps us to build habits. But what comes from that is the idea of suiting yourself and really knowing what's going to work for you. So if you want to look up her work, there's the 4 tendencies. It's about how you respond to inner and outer expectations. It can be a really powerful way to explore the best way to make things happen in your life. And there's some great books around habit building out there. And suiting yourself. So people say to me, what's the best time of day? How long should I meditate for? And I really love the quote from Deepak Chopra, who says, the best meditation practice is the one you actually do. Because it's like exercise or eating well or whatever else. It's like, actually, the one you're going to commit to and make happen is the one that's going to be the best for you. So if that looks like 5 minutes in the car when you're collecting your kids, or on the train on the way to work, obviously not right now, or if it's getting up early and doing that before anyone else is awake, or maybe there's a part of your daily routine where you already stop. You already have a window. And if you can attach a habit to something you already do, it makes it much more likely that you're going to be able to sustain it. And for meditation, the best result really is if it becomes like brushing your teeth. It's just another thing that you do rather than another job on your list of you should do. Because we're all really good at telling ourselves what we should do and making ourselves feel really crap if we don't do them. And meditation doesn't need to be one of those. Actually, it can be something that's just a part of your life in a very integrated way, so that it doesn't feel like it's this separate thing that you go and sit and do. It's just, tuning into your fingers for a minute while you're sitting in a chair, or while you're standing in the queue somewhere, or while you're washing up. It's about, you can tune in, and it's about, what am I doing with my attention? That's what makes it a meditation practice. And staying regular. So that's really important, because the research is really clear. And again, relating it to that metaphor of being like exercise, I wouldn't go to the gym once a month, exercise for 3 hours and think, cool, that's it, I'm ripped. I would know I need to practice regularly. And it's the same with meditation. Building that pathway, building that muscle takes that regular, consistent practice. And 1 minute a day counts. It completely counts. So just do it in a way that works in your life, and start where you are. So as I said, life is a bit weird and unusual right now. So it's about finding a way that you can do it. And when you're able to go back out and about in the world, it's about finding ways to put it into your routine, so that take it off the mat and off the special place, and make it just something that's integrated into your life. And staying accountable is really helpful as well. So if there's someone in your life who you can do this with, or for example, like for me, with clients I work with, they join my community, and that's a way for them to stay accountable and inspired. Because if you don't stay curious about and actually have an interesting practice, it's not going to be sustainable. So if I said to you, you can only do this one exercise for the rest of your life, chances are you're going to be really bored and you're not going to do it. So keep it interesting and find new ways to do it. Now, at the moment, I'm hosting daily live meditations for free as a way to help people to deal with these really extraordinary times that we find ourselves in. So you can join my Facebook community, and I've got the details at the end of this presentation. So if you want to access those, then just come along and join us at 5:15 every day, and that can be a really good way of just building that practice. And this is what we've done today. So I've actually guided you through this intro, making it happen. This is my 7-stage program, and the remaining 6 modules here are really about how you can take this practice and really keep evolving it. So there's lots of layers to meditation. So we move out of that fast lane of and just shift ourselves out of that stress response. And then it's about, what do we do with that, and how can we build a happier and more meaningful life? So managing stress, being able to create micro moments and flow so that you can make meditation really integrated into your life, taming your thoughts so they don't have as much power to yank you around, and you can get underneath the stories of what you believe, finding happiness that works in your life, and redefining what happiness is so that it can be something attainable and achievable, and then connecting to balance and that deeper sense of who you are and what you want your life to be like, and then integrating that into your life so that you can transform your life without even having to change anything in your life necessarily, but just connecting in a totally different way. So that's to give you the kind of the roadmap of where we've been and what's available. And if you would like to get downloads of these slides, of a PDF of the information I've shared, and meditations, the two downloads of the 2 meditations, and how to access those on Insight Timer, you can just email goodies please to that email address, laura@bemodernmeditation.com. Just explain that you've watched this video, and I'll send that information out to you. You can also, Daily Dose of Calm, you can join my free meditations that will be going until the 4th of May, and then I'll be doing them weekly, and that's in my Facebook community. It's also available on Zoom, so if Zoom works better for you, if you look up my profile on LinkedIn, you can find in my posts, recent posts in there, links to the Zoom. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I've also got a YouTube channel for Be Modern Meditation, so you can access the library of meditations that I've done so far as a way to support you during these challenging times, and also even making the most of them. If you're somebody that's been able to find access, maybe a different experience, maybe you're finding this time really positive and you're unlocking lots of things, it can be really helpful for that too. And if you'd like to chat with me more about meditation and find out more, then please do just email me, discovery call please, with the details of that you've watched this talk, and I would love to help you on your journey if that's appropriate for where you're at right now. So thank you for watching and for investing this time in you and giving yourself this time. I know how hard that can be, to really give ourselves time to stop and be still. So I appreciate you doing that and spending this time with me. And I hope that however the next few months pan out, that you're able to stay safe and well. Take care, and thank you very much.